All right, so we are going to begin. I'm going to just take a moment to settle in, getting mind and body together. Anybody who prefers to sit on the floor, there's cushions there for you if you like. Otherwise, chair is fine, obviously. Okay, so let's just settle in. Again, Chansan Pamakasaram Polayim Sanchagin, Utana Kamantanation Sutra, Kudukudum, Kiki Suda, Kiki, Guru Pamasiti. Minchigi keep returning to some Singing in one and some chicken and some to say, so in a mission. Okay. So we want to begin with our bodhicitta motivation. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word. Bodhi means awakened or enlightened, and citta means the mind and heart together. So that's the etymology of the word. The meaning of that is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So our entire goal on this path is to attain enlightenment so that we have the maximum ability to benefit the maximum amount of beings. So we try to have that as our motivation for anything that we do. So in our case, if we can at least think, may this time we spent together this morning benefit not only ourselves, but others as well. Okay. So I would like to know what questions you have for me this morning, if any. I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. What?
She wants to listen.
Just to listen.
Okay.
Listen, yes.
And what is your name again?
I'm sorry. This is the first time I'm here.
Well, welcome.
Yes, my name is Jeremy.
Jeremy.
I saw the group online and studying Buddhism and reading books by Thich Nhat Hanh for the past couple of years.
Great.
So I wanted to come and meet a Sangha.
Terrific. Well, I'm really happy that you're here.
Yeah, sorry to walk in late.
No, it's
The parking was a little cluster.
It's perfectly fine. Please don't worry about it. Yeah. After we're done here, Eileen's going to give you, if you want to sign up for a newsletter, there's a QR code there where you
have
can.
the email.
I do receive.
Is that the newsletter?
The newsletter? Yes.
I do receive.
You also receive? Okay, good. Then we don't have to worry about that. If you feel like making a donation, there's a QR code for that there too. Okay, no obligation, but it does help us out. Okay, so any questions, Jeremy?
No, I just wanted to listen. I've never been to an event like this.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so normally what we do is we start with about, half an hour. Today's going to be a little bit shorter since we started a little bit late. Of a Dharma talk, and then we do mindfulness of breathing practice, and then we do another practice called Tonglen, or the practice of exchange. Do you two have any questions? No? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to discuss two things. One is the Four Noble Truths, which was the first teaching that the Buddha gave after attaining enlightenment. And then I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness of breathing meditation and why it's important and why we do that. So, after attaining enlightenment, the Buddha's first teaching was called the Four Noble Truths. And those truths are, the first noble truth is the truth of suffering. I'll talk about this problematic word in a minute. Truth of suffering, truth of the cause of suffering, truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path which leads to the cessation of suffering. Are you guys familiar with these? Yes. Okay. All right. So you're already familiar. That's good. So I don't need to go into great detail. The word suffering is slightly problematic because it doesn't really encompass the entire range of the word dukkha. Okay. So it includes just a very wide spectrum of dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness. Okay. So, yes, go ahead. Dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness. Okay. So, yes, go ahead.
Translation of dukkha is friction against the wheel. Is that a correct
I never heard of that before, so I don't know. I think it's a kind of poetic phrase that probably would make a cool talk, but I don't know. I never heard. It's the first time I ever heard that. So it encompasses, like, if you look at just like the physical experience, everything from being a little thirsty and needing a glass of water to like being flayed alive, from the mental, emotional experience, everything from being, slightly anxious to your entire world falling apart and your whole family dying at once, kind of deal. So there's that kind of like suffering is a sort of too heavy for things like being a little thirsty, but unsatisfactoriness or dissatisfaction is too light for intense suffering, dukkha or suffering. That is maybe the most important, which is that we are never truly satisfied. So that's where this word sort of dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness comes from. Okay, so by that I mean this sort of easily identifiable dissatisfaction of we have one, we want two, we have two, we want four, we have four, we want eight, that type of never being satisfied. But in a more sort of hidden way or not obvious way is we are constantly looking outside of ourselves for happiness, for lasting happiness, right? We keep trying to manipulate the outside world to be happy. We think if I have the right job, the right house, the right partner, the right body, the right hair, whatever it is, then we think, then I'll be happy, And what we don't notice is that once we get those things, we're still not happy. We're still not really satisfied. We're happy momentarily for, just a moment, and then it goes away. And we don't notice that part. We just replace that with something else that we're grasping after that we think is going to bring us lasting happiness. And this is a problem. Okay. It's this constant like craving, sort of just going after things and feeling like, oh, happiness is just around the corner, as soon as I get all my ducks in a row, like I'll be happy. Okay. And the teaching is essentially we're never going to get all our ducks in a row. It's not going to happen, and we're just looking in the wrong place. Happiness, lasting happiness comes from working with the mind, heart, working with ourselves, finding contentment, cultivating contentment, rather than this constant grasping at the outer world, and trying to change everything, right? Shantideva, who wrote this amazing text, The Way of the Bodhisattva, who some of you are familiar with. There for the 0 people who are on Zoom on YouTube at the moment. Here's the book for future reference for people who might see the recording. I'm always distracted by these lights because they look like drums. I just want to take sticks and right, so Shantideva, right? Shantideva's, I believe it's in the I'm not sure which chapter it's in, but he says, you know, if you're walking outside without any shoes on, and it's going to be unpleasant, right? Walking over stones and glass, and you know it's going to be painful for your feet. Trying to, as a metaphor for us, trying to fix everything outside of ourselves to make us happy, is that then you decide you're going to cover the earth with leather so that you don't experience this pain anymore. You know, and he's like, or hear me out, you could just get a pair of shoes, you know, and then you're fixing your problem, you know, on your own feet, and you're taking care of it within yourself. Then it doesn't matter what stones and glass and pebbles, whatever arise, right? So it's the same. Like we're getting to the point. Another teacher said, it's not that you're trying to get to the point where nobody presses your buttons. Is that the phrase? Push. Thank you. Of nobody pushing your buttons. You're trying to get to the point where you don't have any buttons to push. Okay, where you are so content, where you're resting in the true nature of reality, where your heart is overflowing with love and compassion and wisdom, nothing can perturb you. That's lasting happiness. Okay, that's lasting happiness. So when we talk about suffering, we have to keep this like wider spectrum of understanding in mind when we're going over something like the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so the first is, I'm just going to use the word suffering because that's the word that's used, but you got to do the work of retranslating it in your mind. Okay, so the first thing the Buddha says is there is suffering. The truth of suffering, there is suffering, which is a little weird, right? Like we know there's suffering. We suffer. We're very aware of that. So why is he saying something so obvious? Right? It's because of what I just said. For these other types of suffering that we do not notice, that we don't see. We don't see the trajectory of that kind of suffering. Okay, the subtlety of that kind of suffering, the constancy. You know, if we really look, like we're actually suffering all the time. You know, we get thirsty, we drink water, we want to change positions. You know, this one has changed position about 15 times in the last 5 minutes. Right? Okay. Even when we're sleeping, why are we moving when we're sleeping? Because we get uncomfortable. The body gets uncomfortable, right? And we're always searching for something else. So anyway, there is suffering. So he's just saying, please recognize this, okay? But that first noble truth has subcategory types of suffering. There's the suffering of suffering, which is all the things that we, in using the English language, identify as suffering, obvious suffering, death, loss, pain, all that stuff, okay? Easy to understand. The second is the suffering of change, and that I'll explain in a minute. And the third is the all-pervading suffering, which is a little bit more kind of difficult to explain. But all-pervading suffering is essentially things like, just by virtue of having a human body, we're going to suffer. We're going to get sick. We're going to die. This kind of thing. Okay. So let's talk about the suffering of change. Okay. Suffering of change has two subcategories, and those are, first, that anything that we find pleasant eventually disappears. Okay. And why is that suffering? You know, that is suffering because we want those pleasant things to last forever, right? We want, you know, democracy to last forever, for example. We want summer or fall or whatever our favorite season is. We want all our relationships. We want our pets. We want all these things to last forever. And when they don't, we suffer. Okay. So it's not saying that we can't find happiness in those pleasant things. It's not saying we shouldn't try to have pleasant experiences. It's just saying don't expect that to bring you lasting happiness. That can bring temporary pleasure, but not lasting happiness. Okay. If it brought lasting happiness, let's say that you, like I do, I love pumpkin pie. Okay. Vegan pumpkin pie. Let's say you really enjoy pumpkin pie. Okay. if pumpkin pie would bring you lasting happiness, you would only ever need to have one bite of pumpkin pie and you would be happy for the rest of your life. You would never have to have another bite, another piece, another Thanksgiving, nothing. Okay? So we can see right away that that's ridiculous. Yeah? The other subcategory to the suffering of change is that anything that we find pleasant, if we do it long enough, eventually turns into suffering. Okay? And I don't know why. I say this every time because it's true every time. It always makes me laugh. It's just like it's dark humor, I find, just like, yeah, just continue that pleasant experience, see what happens. But it's true. And the example I normally give is, taking a bath. Some people really like these fancy baths, right? You have your candles and your little bath bomb and your little tray for your computer or whatever, or your book, and you're going to sit in the bathtub and you're going to have a really nice experience. Yes, it's nice, for a while, but eventually becomes unpleasant, right? You don't want to be there anymore. Every pleasant experience we have is like that. If you go back to pumpkin pie, you like pumpkin pie, okay, eat the entire pie. And you eat that whole pie, and somebody brings you another pie, and you eat that pie. Like, it's going to make you sick, right? So why do we have to think about this? What's the point of even considering that? It's to help us to realize that very truth, that we're not going to find lasting happiness outside of ourselves. We're not going to find lasting happiness in relationships, material goods, all this kind of stuff. Okay. So we need to know, like, that's the situation. All right. Second noble truth is the cause of suffering. Okay. From the Theravada point of view, they say the cause of suffering is craving, and similar to what I just described. Vajrayana point of view, we say the cause of suffering is what? Oh,
Whoa.
sorry. What do you have? Do you have an answer?
It would be putting yourself first.
No.
Not
Desire?
Hmm?
Desire?
No, that's the Theravada point of view.
Um,
Yeah. Fundamental ignorance.
Oh, yeah.
ignorance. I should put that.
Fundamental ignorance.
I'm gonna tattoo it on my forehead.
Please don't. You should, if you want to tattoo something, tattoo "I am already enlightened" on your forehead. So this fundamental ignorance. So there's two words for kind of ignorance in Tibetan. One is timuk, which is stupidity. Okay, and that we might use as a, like, ordinary stupidity, but just also the kind of dullness, ignorance in the sense of like being ignorant of the speed limit. Kind of this kind of light, in the sense, ignorance. The other word is ma rikpa. Ma is a negation. Rikpa is kind of like a wisdom or awareness, this kind of thing. So when we talk about the cause of suffering from the Vajrayana point of view, we're talking about it from that aspect, the ma rikpa aspect of like being ignorant of the nature of reality, the nature of the self. Okay, that's huge. Okay, so that's the cause. Third noble truth is cessation of suffering. So this is the easiest and shortest. It just is saying, Buddha was just saying, it's possible to not suffer anymore, you guys. Anyway, he did say it's possible not to suffer anymore. This is a curable situation. Okay. And then the fourth noble truth is the path which leads to the cessation of suffering. Okay. So from the Theravada point of view, it's the Noble Eightfold Path. Right thought, right deeds, right livelihood, all that stuff. Okay. From the Vajrayana point of view, it is hearing or studying the teachings, contemplation, so thinking about what we heard, what we studied, and meditation. So hearing is, reading or listening to the teachings or whatever, to get familiar with what is actually being said, what is actually being taught. Contemplation is when we take those things home with us. So let's say you know, I say this morning, all things are impermanent. We shouldn't just blindly accept that. You know, oh yes, Ani Palmo said all things are impermanent. Okay, no, we should doubt it. We should be skeptical at ourselves, contemplate it. Is that true? Can I find something? There must be something. And what is permanent, you know? And to really bring it into your life, bring it into your mind, examine it, look at everything, you know, like, well, we can see like we're in late fall already. That's, you know, a sign of impermanence. Every time the sun rises and sets and the moon phases, that's impermanent. Every time we see another gray hair or our hairline is receding a little bit more, that's impermanent. You know, people die, that's impermanent. There's so many examples of impermanence in our life, and we should really examine that and see if this teaching is true. And that applies to all the teachings. It is not just accepted that we question, it's encouraged and expected that we should question. We don't just check our brains at the door when we enter Buddhism and Buddhist teachings and practices. Okay, so that's contemplation, and then meditation is bringing these experiences within our own mind, within our own heart, you know, through meditation, making it part of our experience rather than just staying, you know, in our heads, right? So let me give you an example of that. Like, I grew up in a funeral home. Okay, my dad was a funeral director, so the funeral home was on the ground floor, and then we lived on the second floor. Okay, so this was a very interesting experience, right? Because you see funerals, you see dead people, you know, everywhere. I see dead people. So, you know, right? I'm sorry.
It is really funny. I know that's not funny.
Yes.
But it's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. You know.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
That was fine. So I want you to laugh. That's why I'm making a joke. So and grief, you know, just intense grief, you know, all the time. Sometimes less intense. You know, if the person's 90 years old, people are like, "Oh, okay, you know, and they're happy to see each other, and it's kind of not too bad. But when a child dies or a young person dies, like the grief is very, very intense, you know. And I thought, growing up in that, seeing that almost daily, that I understood grief. You know, I felt like, yeah, this is grief. I get it. You know, it's painful. Da da da. But it wasn't until someone that I loved passed away that I really understood grief. You know, that intellect something and experiencing something, having the experience of something. So when we meditate, the aim is to, you know, have the experience of all things are impermanent, everything is empty, compassion, whatever the subject is. Okay. Uh so that those are the Four Noble Truths in brief. Uh, and it was the first teaching of the Buddha, as I said. And it is a teaching that really holds water and is applicable to our entire life and is applicable to this. So even if we have heard this teaching and we feel familiar with this teaching, it's still really helpful to be reminded of it, right? So because these things slip away so easily, you know, even if we've been studying and practicing for a really long time, we can forget basic teachings like this. Um, the example that is often given in regards to these Four Noble Truths is that we should consider ourselves the patient and the Buddha the doctor. And so the first noble truth is the diagnosis. There is suffering. You know, you have whatever, lung cancer. You know. The second is the cause, right? So the cause of your sickness is, you know, you've been smoking since you were 16. Okay. Then the cessation. So then the doctor tells you, but it's okay. Don't worry. This is curable. We can cure it. And then the fourth, here's what you need to do in order to cure it. You need to get chemo. You need to take these medicines, whatever. You need to quit smoking, you know, get rid of the cause, right? And so forth. Okay. So I think that's it for that. Any questions about that? ladies and gentlemen.
So the questions are just a lot of things that is just very familiar, but a lot of it's just bringing everything.
I cannot hear you. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
I don't have questions, but everything that you told us is just very, very good. I mean, it's just bringing everything together. I read a lot. I'm sure everybody does, but there's no like any kind of system here and there and everything. So it's very important to come and listen sometimes.
Yes, yes,
And because it's just okay. Now this is how it's in the system. I mean, here it's how
yes,
it comes together and everything. What is more important and what we need to pay attention to.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that brings me to, my next topic about meditation, right? So meditating in a group is so much easier than meditating by yourself, typically, you know. Um, unless you're very young and there's a cute person that you're into who's like sitting in front of you or something, then it's very distracting. I remember that when I was young, before I ordained, and I would just like, if I would go to a retreat or something, it was just like, who's cute? Who can I connect with? Oh, look at that guy, Very nice. And the relief I felt after I ordained, which I was not expecting, but after I ordained and I went to a retreat, I was like, such a relief not to be thinking like that, not to be scoping out, trying to find somebody, all this kind of stuff. It was really funny. In that case, it's distracting, but otherwise, it's very helpful, to have a group that you're sitting with.
Yeah, in a way, when you age, especially, it's such a relief that you don't have to be really always pretty. I mean, this is just really insane.
Looking pretty.
To be liked,
Oh.
to be liked, and to be
Yeah,
like please somebody and everything. That is just so tiring.
it is. It's so funny that you say that because we were just talking about that. How at some certain age you become invisible.
Yeah, this is just a really wonderful.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, thank goodness, I can walk back past this construction site. I don't have to think about it. I'm good. Yeah, yeah.
Could you sometimes think, when we think of suffering, be reminded that sometimes you can get hooked by it? I mean, like you make that who you are.
Yes, that's a really good point, and it is what sometimes people do. So the question was, if you couldn't hear it, was about sometimes we get hooked on our suffering, and we sort of like make our suffering who we are. We make that our whole personality. I'm suffering, or I had this or that kind of tragedy, right? So it's very interesting for a couple of reasons. One is we we sometimes get very comfortable with suffering. I was just talking about this a few days ago, where I have had you don't need any details, but I've had a very, very bad year. And I felt bad for such a long time. And I just started to kind of come out of that. And I found myself kind of looking for the suffering, like almost like trying to recreate it, like make myself feel bad because I was so much more familiar with that state than with feeling good. So that's one aspect of it. We kind of get into this habit, a familiar way of being. Another thing that can happen is that if we, have a big suffering like the loss of someone, or I don't know, some disease that we have, or something like that, we can kind of get addicted to it because for a few reasons, like it can bring us sympathy, and we feel like we're not sure how else to relate, and like we want to be loved. It's normal, we want to be loved, we want to be cared for, and so we might just milk that way beyond the appropriate point for that. Another is that it kind of feeds the ego. It sort of makes us feel that I'm permanent, I'm um, uh, I'm special in some way, because of my suffering, So rather than uh, um, yeah, it's this whole thing about attachment in Buddhism. You often hear about non-attachment in the Buddhist teachings, and usually we associate attachment with positive things, like I'm attached to my dog or I'm attached to my whatever type of gum or something. Okay. But we get attached to our negative emotions also. We get attached to pain. Saying that we want more. It's saying like we're sort of attached to that as a habit. We're we're afraid of kind of the alternative, and we can kind of feed it, feed our anger or feed our despair or whatever it is, and just kind of wallow in it, and get lost in that. Okay, that can actually be something quite attractive. When we talk about being attached, we're talking about kind of being attached to the perceived permanence, solidity, and so forth of that, whatever that suffering is. Did you want to ask something?
No, I just kind of wanted to add into that. I think um, maybe I get some kind of pleasure from it.
Exactly.
Like,
Yes.
the anger makes you feel in control of
Right.
the situation. You
Right.
feel in control of.
Right.
Like you just latching on to the wrong.
Exactly.
source.
But the anger is it's so funny about anger that we think anger is a position of power, and it's such a position of weakness, It really is. The mind is not clear, completely agitated. We can't see straight. We can't access our own intelligence and wisdom. We're just wigging out, It's like, how is that stronger than being calm and compassionate and composed, This doesn't make any sense. So yeah, so we can be attached for those reasons that I just said. And also else is we can have a sense of loyalty to our suffering, loyalty to our negative emotions, um, where, uh, we might be feeling quite, I'm just going to give the example I normally give, which is when I was in my 1 year retreat in France, my 1 year solitary retreat. It's funny. Every time I hear about like people being put in solitary in prisons, I'm like, oh, that would be so nice. Why do they see it as suffering? I would love it. 3 meals a day, and I could just sit there by myself. Yes, please. I'm sure it's much worse than that, but so I was in retreat and I was feeling bad this particular day, and I happened to be outside, and I remember like so clearly, and I was just picking these blackberries, outside that were like in the backyard, and I just suddenly felt with joy. It's like the sun is shining. I'm smelling these blackberries. It was a very nice experience, and part of me was like, no, you're feeling bad today. Like you can't just switch it off. Yes, 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 we can. Yes, we can. you know yes, we can. We don't need to be loyal to those things. Sometimes people feel like, oh, they'd be a fake. I would not be genuine if I just dropped, decided, okay, now I'm happy. It's just energy, it's just feeling. It doesn't have any substance. We're not obliged to be married to that particular thing, grief or anger or despair or whatever it is, jealousy. you know we don't have to be loyal to that. So I say, like, please have an affair. Have an affair on your anger, your jealousy, whatever. Just drop it. Go run away with happiness and contentment. It's fine. It's fine. So we can get attached in that way also. Okay. Um, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very well.
You're welcome. Okay. Good. Good. Yes.
I don't have a question. Did you know your microphone's not plugged in?
Oh.
I noticed that about 3 minutes ago. I'm like, uh-oh.
Thank you. Oh, well. I hope that the sound came out for the recording. And there is one person listening now, so I hope you could hear me before. Okay, thank you. All right. So I actually need a little bio break, so I'm going to take that. If you need to use the restroom, it's out here. Turn left and left again, and it'll be clear where it is. And I will be right back. Then we'll do meditation. Yes.
No.
Oh, sorry.
I like your butterflies and your sakes.
Thank you. I have purple ones too.
And pink. Great.
I read somewhere that you have to go from one to another, and to another. Sometimes people have in all the time, not Tibetans have about 10 different sensations until they find one.
Right, teachers and
So those who know when I read about how you just can read something or listen to somebody from Colorado, a teacher, and they're just pretty amazing stuff that they sometimes say.
what I like, because of COVID, unfortunately, is this is absolutely lovely right here and now. Thank goodness we have Zoom for when
I
you're
know.
not able to be here and now.
So,
Here and now.
Okay. Thank you. So let's do some meditation. I was going to talk about it, but we don't have much time, so we're just going to do it. And I'm pretty sure you three have already meditated before.
yeah, because I'm just about Tonglen and the first one that you mentioned. So I'm just this terminology that is used and everything. It's just I never done Tonglen before, and I know that it's a very difficult one.
It's not difficult.
It's not difficult.
No, it's not difficult.
In what I've heard about from another
I can't hear.
teacher, that is pretty difficult for some people to do for some reason. And you're talking about Tonglen, I mean,
Yeah.
if I am correct. But it is very important really to just start somewhere and just go out, start somewhere. But that's what I need. I'm meditating, but I'm not getting nowhere. Basically, I'm not patient enough or something. So I was thinking, I just wanted to hear what you're going to say about these two meditations. Just want to
Sure. Okay.
and
Okay.
show how it's done.
Okay. Yes. So the going to do a few minutes of mindfulness or breathing practice, and then I'll stop that, and then we'll go into the Tonglen and I'll explain it. But right now, as far as mindfulness or breathing practice is concerned, It involves adopting the meditation posture and then focusing on the sensation of the breath as it at the end of the nostrils there, using that as the focus of your awareness and letting the thoughts come and go. So thoughts will arise, dwell, and disappear on their own. It will be replaced by another thought, which will dwell and then disappear on its own in an unbroken chain like that, typically. Okay. So the aim here is just to maintain continuous, relaxed awareness of that sensation of the breath and not and to just let the thoughts come and go without getting involved in them. So for example, maybe we're sitting and cute socks. And thoughts are coming and going, and we're able to maintain awareness. And then suddenly a thought arises. Um, Thanksgiving is in a couple weeks. You know, then what we want to do is just let that go. We can label it thinking and come back to the breath. But what we might do is just start running after that thought. Oh, oh yeah. Oh my gosh. What am I going to make? What am I going to buy? Oh, my family's coming over. Oh my God. Oh, I remember when I was 7, this and that happened, and we're just like, ba-da-dum, 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 bum, bum, it's just running off. Okay. That's what we're trying to avoid. But that's normal. That's completely natural. That's going to happen. As soon as we realize, oh, I got completely distracted, just bring the mind back and become aware of the breath again. Okay. So the posture, if you're sitting on the floor, you just want your feet, the hands can be palms down on the knees like that, or palms up like that, or with your fingers on top of each other and your thumbs touching like that. Okay. I have a weird thumb, so just ignore that. So, okay, like that. All right. Arms are relaxed. The back is straight. Okay. The back of the neck is also straight, so the chin's going to be tucked in just a little bit. Okay. The shoulders should be back a little bit, so just roll them back one time, and it'll kind of open up your chest quite nicely. Mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. Ideally, the eyes are open, looking down in front of you a few feet, so like half open, half closed, however you want to term it. Relaxed, lowered, unfocused gaze. So that's the posture, and it's specifically the posture of meditation because it supports the mind in meditation. So there's an acknowledgement of the mind-body connection there. No sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. And we just, again, body should be as relaxed as possible while maintaining the posture. Mind also should be as relaxed as possible while maintaining awareness of the breath. Okay. So we're not trying to block thoughts or block any experience. Okay. We're aware of ourselves, our seed, whatever noises. Everything's included in the mandala, but mainly our awareness is on the breath. Okay? So I'm going to ring the gong to start and also to finish. And now you can begin to count the breaths. Counting acts as an extra reminder to help us realize more quickly when we've gotten distracted. So we want to count either every in breath or every out breath up to a total of 10 complete breaths. If you lose count in the middle, no big deal. Just come back, start again at 1. If you get to 10 without losing count, don't let that distract you. Bring the mind back, start again at 1. So please begin that now. So now we're going to move into the Tonglen practice. So Tonglen is a Tibetan word. It means giving and receiving. Okay? So the aim of this practice is to work with our innate compassion, access that, make it stronger, uncover, and remove whatever obstacles we might have towards being compassionate. Okay, so the overarching mechanism of this practice is to take on the suffering of others and offer them our own happiness. Okay, so the reason that that is done is not because we want to be a martyr or something like that, but just because our most basic and strongest kind of obstacle towards being compassionate to others is sort of being very self-focused, um, self-centered. So we're just trying to turn that upside down, so maybe we can be a little bit more compassionate towards others. Okay. One of our main teachers, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, he talks about I remember being very sort of shocked by the simplicity and power of this very basic statement that he made when talking about compassion. He said, just start by being willing to be inconvenienced, And I was like, dang, like that's really something, right? Because if we look, like a lot of times we think like I'm really generous, I'm really kind, whatever, but like as long as it's convenient. Yeah. And it's not saying this so that we feel bad about ourselves. It's just normal. This is our habit. So, we're sort of well, you were talking about that with the volunteers, um, like we want to volunteer, but only if we don't really have to go out of our way or make any kind of sacrifice. We want to support our friends, but not if they need a ride to the airport. Things like that, right? Things like that. Just be inconvenienced. Just start there, and I found that so powerful because I never thought of it like that. I was just always, I think most of us think of ourselves as really nice people and generous and helpful and all good things. But if we start to look with more kind of honesty, we could see, yeah, as long as it's not too much. So that can be just like picking up the phone when your depressed friend calls, this friend who you're so can be tired of hearing from. I'm somebody who's suffered from depression my whole life. So I'm that friend who's like, and sometimes people don't want to talk to you. And just be a little inconvenienced. It's okay. What do you want to say?
I was going to the example of cutting in line in the grocery,
Mm-hmm.
because, I'm being kind, but then you cut because you want to be first because you want to get out of it.
Right.
And you use that example.
Yes.
And instead, just maybe letting the other person go first.
Right. So just simple things like that. And the whole path is this way. And this is important to remember also, that it's a very gentle process. We're never expected to make huge leaps and, cause ourselves a lot of suffering. It's gentle steps, step by step, step by little step, and we get there. So just beginning by being willing to be inconvenienced and getting to the point where we can really, really benefit others. Okay. So this practice has 5 stages. First is just, resting the mind. So I would ring the gong, you listen to the sound, and just let your mind settle. It's different than trying to focus, and it's definitely different than just allowing ourselves to be totally distracted. Okay. Second is just working with the visualization. So we imagine a bright white light in our heart center. We're breathing in gray smoke. We're breathing out white. The smoke dissolves into the white light, and we're breathing out white light. Okay? Third is working with an individual. Okay. So typically there are 4 different categories of individuals that we can work with. Okay. We should do just one of these at a time. One of these in any given session. So someone we love a lot, which is what we're going to do today, because I think some of you have never done this practice. So that's the easiest. Someone we love a lot. Someone who is neutral to us. So that is like a neighbor, a distant relative, someone like you recognize their face, but You don't neither particularly like nor particularly dislike them. And that was really important because we're trying to develop love and compassion for all beings without exception, right? So if, we just really limit that, which is our habit at present, then how are we going to make that grow? And the majority of people we come in contact with actually fit that category of neutral. Okay. Then the third is someone that we dislike, or someone with whom we have a difficult relationship. And this is such an amazing practice for that. I have heard over and over and over again how doing this practice for someone that we have a hard time with is just transformative of ourselves, that person, of the relationship. It's quite amazing. And in that same vein, like, we need to remember, like, we don't need to be Buddhist to do this practice. We don't need to be a good, so-called good practitioner to do this practice. It's simple in that sense, and extremely powerful. Then the fourth stage is we just do the same practice for all beings without exception, so that our compassion is balanced, right? If we only focus on an individual, our compassion is quite narrow. If we only focus on all sentient beings, it becomes something quite vague, and amorphous. So we want to do both of those things. And the fifth stage is just bringing the mind back to the breath. Okay. So any questions before we start, so we're not distracted by our questions?
How's it different from loving kindness?
It's different. You mean like metta meditation?
Yes.
It's different from that because in metta meditation, we're not removing the sufferings of others. We're wishing them well. And I love metta meditation. It's great. You start by an individual and you gradually spread it farther and farther away. That's lovely. But this one is different because we're absorbing their sufferings and giving away our own happiness. Very different. Similar concept, right? And that is based on compassion and others. But in my view, deeper and more powerful because of that other aspect. And we have to remember, like, we are taking on the suffering of others, but it's being transformed in our heart center in this light.
But the visualization, I think that is the most difficult part for me to do, right? Because it's just, I try to do that. I feel about that Tonglen meditation, but visualizing that is going through you and everything. It's just really, this is like, maybe it will require like a lifetime to do it. It seems to me like that. It is really difficult.
I missed the last part of what you said.
To visualize.
To visualize is different.
Somebody's pain and how to it's going to go through you and you're going to give compassion. I'm just intellectually just can't wrap around.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, a lot of times when people have a hard time with visualization, and I'm not sure that your difficulty is with the visualization. Is it with the visualization or is the process?
The whole process is for me seems like so difficult to understand somebody's pain, and to be compassionate. What does it mean? To be compassionate, you want to really, really help this person, and you want to take his pain
Yes.
away, right? And it's transforming you. But you have to imagine, to have this kind of vision, so it's going through it. That's the most difficult part, I think.
Yes.
Going through you.
Yes.
And how you return it as a light or whatever it is.
Yes.
I think that is the most difficult part.
That's the most difficult part for you. Okay. Yeah.
But
Then.
I'm not sure, because I'm just really new to this.
Yes, I think.
Intellectually, I understand that how it's done.
Sure.
How it is going through me, and how I'm returning with my love and compassion. I want to help this person. And really, I know it's so important to do. Really important, because it's really, really, it brings some incredible.
Well, I mean, what we're working with when we do this practice is we're working with our own mind. We're working with our own hesitation towards helping others, or a hesitation towards being inconvenienced, if we want to use that terminology again. Our usual habit is to protect ourselves. Our usual habit is me first, and again, like, please don't misunderstand that, this teaching is about, oh, you should feel guilty and you're all going to hell because, you're not thinking about this all the time. No, it's just the habit that we have, it's normal. Like, I have to take care of myself. Who's going to take care of me? I should take care of myself. Okay. But not at the expense of others. And this is the part that often comes into play unnoticed, right? You know, Lucy mentioned this example that I always give of the grocery store. If we're very tired and we want to leave, and we're sort of, we have our cart full of things, so we kind of race to be in front of somebody else that we see out of the corner of our eyes, right? That's just me taking care of me. It's not me wanting to hurt that person or make that person suffer, but it results in them having a harder time because I put myself first. Okay. Not a big deal. It's not, it's not life changing. It's just an easy, small, oft repeated example. Okay. Um, so if we're talking about visualization in general, and I bring this up not because I think that's what you're saying, but because it's the subject, and a lot of people or sometimes people say they have a hard time visualizing at all, visualizing anything. And in that case, then I invite people to think about what does your living room look like? If you've pictured your living room, you've visualized. That's all it is. It's just picturing something. Okay. If you're talking about the bigger issue of like taking on the suffering of someone else and having this, process go through, and that being difficult, yes, that's why it's practice. We practice, we practice. Sometimes people are afraid because they feel like, well, let's say that I'm doing this practice for somebody that has cancer. Does that mean I'm going to have cancer, or I'm opening myself up somehow psychically to get cancer? No, it doesn't mean that. Mainly because we're not good enough at it. Because, realized teachers can actually take on the suffering of others. We're just not there yet. But two, the whole aim of this practice is to get to the point where we'd be overjoyed to take cancer away from somebody, even if we had to experience it. Like, that is true selfless compassion. So that's kind of like where we're going. But in the meantime, we don't need to be worried about that. This is a mental practice that's meant to transform our own mind. But because of the power of the mind, it can really benefit others. And people who have done this practice, even if they haven't done it a lot, even if they're not a so-called great practitioner or a great meditator or whatever, have seen the benefits of it over and over again. Okay? So great practice when you don't know what to do for somebody who's suffering. They're dying, or they're in the middle of addiction, or whatever it is, we can do this practice for them. Or we have a difficult relationship that, like, we can't escape. We talking doesn't work, not talking doesn't work. All this we can just do Tonglen, and that will transform the relationship because we're moving our own position. We're moving out of the way, that we cannot maintain that dynamic if we're not standing in the same place of our resentment, our fear, our anger, or whatever it is. Okay. All right, so we're really like short on time, very much so. So let's just get into the practice. We'll do it just briefly, yes?
If we run over a little bit, it's okay. The room's free for the rest of the day.
Okay,
so we
thank
don't
you.
Have to hurry.
Thank you,
Very
thank
good,
you.
very
Great, that's great. Okay, so we take the same posture as before, all right? If you want to close your eyes for this practice, please go ahead and do that. I'm going to just settle in for a moment. Bring your awareness to the breath. I'm going to ring this gong and listen to the sound as long as you can hear it, and let the mind rest. Now imagine in your heart center, so the middle of your chest, a bright white light like a shining star. And then consider that you're breathing in gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy, through all the pores of your body. All of that smoke dissolving into the white light in your heart center until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. Then we breathe out this white light through all the pores of the body, cool, clean, clear, very bright. The light going in all directions. Okay, now imagine in front of you someone that you love a great deal. This person can have already passed away, or they can be living still. And really go into your heart and feel the love you have for this person and the love they have for you. This is really a heart practice. How precious they are to you. And then bring to mind the way or ways in which this person is currently suffering or did suffer. Physically, maybe they are ill or have other physical problems. Mentally, emotionally, maybe they suffer from addiction or depression or anxiety or what have you. Maybe they're having trouble with money. Maybe they're having trouble at home, at work, at school. Whatever it is, you know them, you love them. Don't just keep that in your head, but try to really go into your heart and feel, what does it feel like for this person that we love so much to have to endure that? Then naturally, because we love them, having compassion is so easy. We want to remove their suffering. So we imagine that all their suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, hot in temperature, heavy in weight, dark. It leaves them and it comes to you. And with a lot of love and compassion, you breathe that in through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center. Until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then you offer this person your own happiness, your own good fortune, anything at all that they may need to feel better. And adding to that the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. And all of that takes the form of white light, cool in temperature, clean, clear, very, very bright and light in weight. And you breathe out this white light towards, and the light goes towards this person that you love. And when the rays of light touch them, all of their suffering just disappears, just lifts off of them. They feel so happy, relieved, and at ease. We feel joyful for being able to do this for them. Now we do the same thing, but for all sentient beings. So first imagining them all around us, in front, as many beings as you can conceive of, stretching all the way to the horizon. To the right, again, as many beings as you can imagine, all the way to the horizon. Behind, same thing, all the way to the horizon. and to the left. As many beings as you can imagine, all the way to the horizon. So now you're in the middle of a sea of sentient beings. And the first thing we want to do is recognize our sameness in that each and every being, without exception, wants to be happy, just like we do. They want to be free of suffering, just like we do. And sadly, they suffer nonetheless, just like we do. So we imagine whatever their sufferings may be, physical, mental, emotional, all of their sufferings takes the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves them, it comes to you with so much courage and love and compassion. You breathe that in through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center till there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then we offer all of these beings your own happiness, giving it away, your own good fortune, anything and everything that they may need to feel better, and the wish that they attain enlightenment in this very life. And all of that takes the form of white light, cool, clear, very bright. And we breathe out this white light through all the pores of your body, the light going in all directions as far as the eye can see. And when these rays of light touch all these beings, each individually, their suffering just lifts off of them and disappears like fog in the morning sun. They feel so happy, so relieved to be free of this burden of suffering, joyful and peaceful. And you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. Now you let go of the visualization altogether, gently bringing the mind back to the breath, using that sensation of the breath to bring and keep the mind in the present moment, here and now. So normally we do that for a longer period of time, but we sort of ran out of time. Eileen's going to pass around the closing prayers. You're welcome to join or not. It's totally up to you. I'm going to share the screen here on... oh boy, okay, maybe I can't do that. Okay, well, it's much more complicated than I was expecting. Hopefully this will work. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know if you guys can see this on YouTube or not. I'm sorry. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to cancel it because I don't know. I don't know how it's working. No, I have them here. So we're going to begin with the prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And these 4 prayers we do just in Tibetan for the long life of the Dalai Lama and our teacher and all teachers in general. Kanri wawe kowe shinkan su bandande wa malu juwene chenre siwon tenzin kyo soyi shape kyo gaba tu tengyo shi Om swasti jigme kempe kalong yambaru conversations is Bumdawa, Nidrudan Sanam Ke no Bucho, Sechega Wesha Kinta Su So. Om Swasti Tselagam Suchin Laptin June, Runzin Dang Se Gutu Pama Wang, Sangsun Nadre Gyalpo Tatene, Lapchanten de Shaitan Tage Sho, Lama Kugan Sampo Sawade, Chotu Kose Riwa Sawade, Trine Tashinge Pa Sawade, Lama Dante Wa Me Pa Chingi Do. So on the other side, the first prayer there we say once in English, once in Tibetan. The remaining three we say just in English, and then we do the 100-syllable mantra. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sunandi tamche zepani, tone nipe jana pancheshi, kegana chi balon trupayi, sipet sole droa sho. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Drito Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sawasiri Me Prayatsasa Karma Sutsa Me Chitam Shriyam Kuruhung Ha 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 O Bhagavan Savatata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajriva Samaya Sattva. All right, so thank you so much for coming this morning. So nice meeting you. Thank you to the YouTubers. I do want to say that if you go on our website, which is BuddhistCleveland.org, and you go to the meditation tab, you'll see there's an outline of how to do this practice that you can just download, and you'll have a little outline there. Also, our channel is Songtsen Gampo on YouTube, and there's a whole bunch of videos there of all the different Tonglens and talks and meditations and all kinds of stuff, so you can access that at any time. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank